Welcome back to Learning with Liz. If you have visited my YouTube channel before, you know that I have provided videos for teacher trainees beginning their journey as educators. If you are interested in those videos, I have a playlist all to do with teacher training advice. Today I'm going to be starting a new playlist, a little bit different, and helping students currently learning about philosophy and ethics at A-level. That is a subject that I am qualified in. This is my third year teaching, and I'm excited to do some revision videos for you. These are going to be basically short chunks of information that you can use for your revision, and they should be easy to understand as well. If you are wanting revision resources that are a little bit more detailed, then you can access that on my TES shop. The links will be in the description box below. There are free worksheets available on there, and there are also some longer PowerPoints that you can get for a couple of quid. But all you need to do is basically sign in for a free TES login. Just to make you aware, guys, before the video starts, I am currently residing in Sheffield, and it is a very, very gross grey day. However, I'm also very blind. So if I don't wear my glasses, I can't see my beautiful notes that I have in front of me. But at the same time, if I do wear my glasses, I have to endure these searing artificial lights that are in front of me to light the camera up. So throughout the video, I might be chopping and changing, taking my glasses off, putting them back on, just so I can see, and also so I'm not getting blinded, okay? First world problems. So without further ado, today we are beginning natural law for beginners, okay? So let's get started. A long, long time ago, about 2,500 years ago, there was this philosopher called Aristotle. You might have heard of him before. You might have seen nice little stone models of him. He had lovely curly hair, and he described a lot about the universe, mainly to do with the purpose of the world, something that he called telos. So telos basically means in Greek purpose. Aristotle believed that everything in the world had a purpose, and this is how Thomas Aquinas, the main scholar of natural law, how he was inspired basically. So the telos can be discovered by looking at nature, and that is why natural law is called natural law. You look at nature to figure out what your purpose is, and from that you can then build your own ethical values. So, for example, I sound like Hermione there. For example,
she needs to sort out her priorities.
You think of a tree. You look out at nature and you see a tree. You notice, if you sort of study it, that it can give out oxygen. That is its purpose. It's to photosynthesize, it's to give off oxygen so humans can flourish. You look at a spider. Its purpose is to munch on those gross flies, and that means there's less flies in the universe. So there are just two examples of how some things in nature have a purpose, and Aquinas builds on that to look at what a human's purpose is. Before we look into how we can identify and follow our purpose, we're going to look at something called eudaimonia. So eudaimonia is something that Aquinas, again, was inspired by Aristotle, and this is the whole idea that if you achieve your telos, you achieve your purpose, you can reach eudaimonia, and that is your end goal, okay? Eudaimonia basically means supreme happiness. So, I mean, Aristotle kind of just left it there. He wasn't a Christian man, so he wasn't thinking your purpose is to sort of live in one with God at the end of your life. His whole idea was just supreme happiness, and you can go into all of that Aristotle shizzle in a different unit. But Aquinas was inspired by this concept of eudaimonia, and being a wonderful 13th century Christian man, he believed that the whole idea of a human was to grow into the image of God. That was our eudaimonia. That is how we can achieve supreme happiness, by being as close to God as possible. So we are going to start to look at some thinking points now. So we've just had a little look at the background, at the basic background of natural law, the sort of inspiration with Aristotle's telos and eudaimonia, and how Aquinas has sort of added on to that already with this idea of eudaimonia being one with God, growing into the image of God, imago Dei in Latin, and how we can know our purpose through looking at nature. And what I want you to think about is nature good? Already, do you think that this is going to be a good ethical theory? You look at nature to know what is the right thing to do, okay? And that is some thinking points, because you could be like, well, yeah, it's a really, really clear way. Science is great. Science shows us what the right thing is, what is real. But then you could also think, well, actually, is nature that good? You have John Stuart Mill that talks about how you look at nature and you look at the horrific things that nature can do. For example, earthquakes. So many people can die from natural disasters, and nature is just doing its thing there. Does that mean that it's good? Wonderful. So now that we've looked at the background of natural law, we're going to look at something called the synderesis rule. And this is something that Thomas Aquinas, the Italian 13th century Christian scholar, talked about in his book Summa Theologica. So the synderesis rule basically means do good and avoid evil. And that is the whole sort of method underpinning natural law. That is the right thing to do. To do good, avoid evil. You're probably here like, Aquinas, that is very, very general. That is very, very broad. I've got no idea what you mean. What is good? So Aquinas basically means good is following nature, what nature does. And that is because God created the world, created nature. Therefore, we should do what God wants us to do, basically. And he gives us a little bit more information. And this is in the form of the 4 laws. So, if you go onto my TED shop, you can get a free resource where you can see this little diagram. But basically, there are 4 laws, and we have, at the top of the chart, we have something called the eternal law. And this is the law that only God knows about. This is only available to God, and he knows why he's done it. So this is basically the reason why God has made the world the way it is. And no one else can access it. How on earth are we going to know what the right thing to do is then, if God is the only person to know his eternal law? And what happens then is we go down to the second kind of like little section on the triangle, which is the divine law. And this is basically the Bible, or prophets, scholars, Christian theologians. And they basically, God reveals his eternal law through the divine law. So he's kind of sprinkling us with a little bit more of information. So the Bible is basically an example of the divine law. So we've got eternal law, divine law, and then it's like, okay, so how do people who aren't Christian then know what the right thing is to do then? Because obviously, if you're not Christian, you're not going to be like reading the Bible, or you might do just to criticise it, like a lot of people do, studying philosophy and religion at university. But how can other people that can't be bothered to read the Bible know what the right and moral thing to do is? And this is natural law. Okay, the third section on the law's little triangle is natural law, and this is this inbuilt moral compass that is God-given to us when we are born. And the natural law contains rules, these 5 rules, which are the 5 primary precepts, which is what we're going to come to later. Okay, so eternal law, only God knows it. Divine law, God is sprinkling us like Salt Bay with some information about what is the right thing to do in the divine law. And then the natural law is this inbuilt moral compass of that we just instinctively know what the right thing to do is, and that is to follow nature, and it's God-given. And then finally, at the bottom level, we have human law. And this is basically how we have formed morality in our society. And it is filtered down from God's eternal law. It has gone through the divine law. You think about in the Bible, like the 10 Commandments, a lot of them are still applicable today. If you kill someone, you're going to go to prison. It's basically, it's not very nice, is it, to commit adultery to your partner. It's a big no-no in society, just in general. So you can basically see how all of these laws, starting with the eternal law, have trickled down into our human society. So we have looked at Background so far. We have looked at the synderesis rule, and that has been informed by the 4 laws. And now we are going to focus in mainly on natural law. Out of all those laws that we've looked at, obviously the unit that you might be getting assessed on in your exam is natural law, and you need to know how do people know what is the right thing to do if they follow natural law. And that is through the 5 primary precepts. Okay, let's get started on the 5 primary precepts. So, as we looked at before, humans' purpose is to be perfect by acting in a way that God wants us to, in the image of God. But, like we were saying before, with the 4 levels of law, not everyone has access to the Bible. Therefore, how on earth does everyone know what the right thing is? We have access to this moral compass that is God-given, we were born with, which is the natural law, but you are given more guidance if you follow this theory. It's not just like, just feel it in your gut, what's the right thing to do. It kind of is like that because you have to look at nature and just know, but you're given these 5 primary precepts, which are laws. So, God created his good creation, humans, to have an intuitive desire for the things he designed best for them. And it comes down to the 5 primary precepts, and you can remember this as pregs, okay? Like someone just saying, oh, she's preggers, she's pregs. That, I want you to remember that because it is an acronym for the 5 primary precepts. P stands for preserve life. R stands for reproduction. E stands for educate. G stands for God, and S is seek a peaceful society. These are basically things that come natural to us, according to Aquinas. And whilst you're listening to this, I want you to think, is this what's natural to every human being? Already you could be like, God? Like seeking God? Really? Does everyone still do that now? I don't think so. This theory is outdated. So, the first one, the P, stands for preserve life. In nature, we try and preserve our own as much as possible. So if I were to ask, basically like in a classroom setting, I could start the lesson off by saying, what is natural to us? And there could be loads of different things on the board. It could be, is homosexuality natural to mankind? Is suicide natural to mankind? Is contraception natural to mankind? Obviously, in philosophy, you have so many discursive, ethical conversations. So this is always done in a sort of sensitive, mature environment. And that's something for you to think about right now. Those questions, are those 3 things natural to humans? Contraception, homosexuality, committing suicide, okay? And loads of different people are going to have different opinions. But Aquinas will say, or did say, because he's dead, that preserving life is natural to humans. If you commit suicide, you are ending your life. He would say it's not natural for you to commit suicide, and that is why in the 13th century you think about those people that did commit suicide in Christianity, you'll be going to hell because you are destroying God's beautiful creation. It's basically murder. You're murdering yourself. That is P, preserve life. Therefore, if you then go off and kill someone, you are going against the primary precept of preserving life. Therefore, that is wrong. What is right is for you to follow the 5 primary precepts, okay? So, R, reproduce. Aquinas is going to say, you look at nature, you know that reproduction is natural to us. It's natural to animal kind, it's natural to mankind as well. Obviously, humans are animals, we are mammals. And we have this inbuilt sex drive within us. It feels good if we have sex, which then leads to offspring, children, and then mankind can continue. So reproduction is natural. Therefore, you should reproduce, is what Aquinas is saying. Then we go for E, educate. Educating the young. That is important to sort of socialise the youngsters in the world so that they feel prepared for life and that they can continue without their parents once their parents die, and also to help society. We've got G, which is God. So Jean-Paul Sartre spoke about how there is this sort of God-sized hole within mankind, we basically, even if we're not religious, we're thinking like, well, what is out there? There must be something out there. The world is so amazingly designed, it's so intricate, like it can't have just been like Big Bang Theory. That doesn't make any sense. So this could be a way to understand this idea of what is natural is to seek God, according to Aquinas. So if you are following this primary precept, you'd be going to church, you'd be going to Bible study groups, that kind of thing. And then S, seek for a peaceful society. Or S for society. And this is the idea of that humans are social beings. We want to interact with loads of different people in the world, and that is what is good about mankind. That is what we should do, so we can learn from others and we can understand different things, and obviously that's what RE is all about anyway. So if you were basically going against this primary precept, it would be things like war. You're destroying life, obviously that goes against the 5 primary precepts because you're supposed to preserve life, but also you're causing conflict and stress within society, which is wrong. Okay, so praise, preserve life, reproduce, don't want to swear. Then we have educate, we have God and society, okay? I mentioned that of how you basically apply these into your real world scenario. So if you murder, obviously that is a no-no according to natural law because you're supposed to be preserving life. And this has a special term, like an umbrella term, and they're called the secondary precepts. The secondary precepts are basically when you apply right reason to the 5 primary precepts. There are loads of different scenarios that you can think of. And I'm gonna offer some to you today. So if you start up a school in a third world country, then which 5 primary precept does that link to? Okay, you're using your reason and you're starting up a school in a third world country. It links to educate, that precept from the 5 primary precepts. Oh my goodness, that's so hard to say quick. Okay, using contraception, which 5 primary precept does that link to? Reproduce, obviously. Okay, so if you use contraception, you are stopping that reproduction process, and therefore that is wrong. Okay, according to Aquinas. Let's think of murdering someone. That links to preserve life. That is wrong, okay? So you are using your right reason in accordance with the 5 primary precepts. That is what secondary precepts are, okay? So we are going to stop there for today's revision session on natural law. We have looked at the background of natural law, the inspiration from Aristotle with telos and eudaimonia, how Aquinas then develops that and creates a brand new theory, natural law, by looking at the synderesis rule. We then looked at the 4 levels of law, focused on natural law, the 5 primary precepts, and applying our right reason to those precepts, which is called secondary precepts. That is the end of today's revision video. Hopefully you have found that digestible, understandable, and you've added a few more things to your revision notes that will be useful to you. If you are wanting some more details, or maybe you're wanting some things that you can actually properly write down for your revision resources, go to my TED shop and you can access actual written content and worksheets that will be really useful for your notes and for your folders as well. If you have any questions about this topic in particular, please write them in the comments below. If you have enjoyed this and found it really useful for you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you are wanting more content like this, revision videos, and also help for teacher trainees as well. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope your brain is not hurting and that you are ready for the world. Probably need to say goodbye. Bye! Oh yeah, sorry. Am I saying hi? I would like. Don't include that one because I sounded like a chipmunk that has been hit. Everyone is gonna be educated. Aristotle is so fascinated by me. That probably should have been the other way around.